Hello, 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 and a pleasant good evening to you all. I see we have a lot of early birds in the chat. We've got an amazing podcast for you all today. Really, we're going to look back on 2024, the ups, the downs, the in-betweens, and then we're going to look ahead to 2025 and see what gaming may have in store for us for the future. Now, I've got a few things I want to touch on before we jump into the episode. First and foremost, let's give a shout out to the Sages of the Lodge. Beautiful names you see on your screen are YouTube channel members, longtime Twitch subscribers. People used to be able to be members through Spotify, but Spotify and I are not really getting along right now. Nothing too crazy. It's just, you guys know how I like to show the gameplay clips and like cutscenes in the background while I'm talking. Since Spotify is from Sweden and not America, their copyright laws are a little bit more strict compared to ours. So I just keep getting copyright flagged over on Spotify. So I either have to go audio only or figure something out over there. Anyway, beautiful names you see on your screen, YouTube channel members, longtime Twitch subscribers. Couldn't do this show without them, especially now when we're in a bit of a slower season and I'm not making as much content. Still pumping stuff out for you guys here and there, but you know, with Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts and Soul Calibur and Persona and everything we talk about pretty much in its off season, these are the names that are keeping us rolling. So thank you to all of you. Now, this won't be our last podcast of the year. We are going to go live again next week, probably next Thursday. I'm going to tell you guys my game of the year. I've played through a lot of games this year. I'm at the very end of Metaphor ReFantazio. So once I finish that, we're going to do a whole podcast where I make my arguments. I'm going to pick about 4 or 5 different candidates. I'm going to build a case why each of them should be game of the year. And then at the end, I'm going to tell you ultimately what my game of the year is. I'm still undecided. I'm down to 2 or 3, but I'll save that for next week. Now again, let's give some shout outs to the early birds who are here. Big love to Kevin Hughes, Suko Bars, Adonai, Tarnish Potosai, Nock Flugel, David, Hyrule Falcone, and Zeb. You guys are awesome. Thank you for choosing to hang out here. Y'all, it was my 21st birthday last week. Zeb, happy birthday. Welcome to the club. You're 21, which means you're responsible for yourself. Any screw up you do is on you. A little early episode for me to be cursing. But happy belated birthday, Zeb. Now look, new First Shoulder chapter dropped yesterday. Yeah, I know. We will get around to it here in the lodge. Don't you worry. Before we get into it though, guys, there was something I wanted to touch on. So I've been making content on the internet for a long time, probably about 20 years now. I'm 32 years old. 20 years ago, I was making sprite animations on newgrounds.com. I was animating sprites like fighting each other, like a Smash Brothers tournament and stuff. But I threw in like DBZ characters and stuff. Anyway, I wanted to take a minute. I don't know how familiar anyone out there might be with Final Fantasy Sonic X, but the creator of that series, Black Devil X, is a very old friend of mine. And I received news that he passed away within the last couple of days. And the reason I want to bring this up is because without Black Devil X, I'm not sure I'm doing this. 20 years ago, I was like, I'm a 12, 13-year-old kid roaming around Newgrounds. He showed me how to animate. He showed me how video editing software works and stuff. You know, I mostly taught myself, but he answered any questions I had. He was always very helpful. And I don't know, man, it's just like, I was much more shy back then. Like, I was actually pretty introverted for like the first half of my life. But he was one of those voices in my ear. It was like, nah, man, you're cool. Like say your piece, be yourself, put yourself out there. Don't be afraid. You know, he's like, oh, you're going to have lots of haters, but screw the haters. Focus on the people who really mess with what you do. Focus on the people who really like what you do. You know, and there's just advice that guy gave me 20 years ago and things he taught me that I'm still applying to this very day. So I don't want to stick on it too much, but out of respect, because that guy was such a big part of me starting to create things and put them out on the internet, I just want to send my condolences to him, my condolences to his family, and just, you know, let you guys know that, like, if not for creators like him, I'm not sure I'm doing this. I'm not sure we have this episode today. If you haven't heard of Final Fantasy Sonic X, there are these like turn-based action flash games that he used to make that are just so much fun. It's so vintage internet. And again, he was such a nice guy, such a good guy. He's a few years older than I am. And even when I was just like a fucking, like, doofy teenager, you know, he didn't just hand wave me away. He's like, no, let me help this kid. Let me teach him a few things. So Shout out to him. Shout out to Black Devil X. He'll be sorely missed, and he inspired, whether he knows it or not, whether his family knows it or not, he inspired a lot of people, myself included. Final Fantasy Sonic X, a glorious time. It really was. You want to know something funny? In the first few episodes of Final Fantasy Sonic X, you'll see my name in the credits. In the first, I think, 2 or 3 episodes, you'll see my name in the credits. I used to get the music and stuff for him. Anyway, let's hop into things here. Let's get to it. Let's have a good time. So, first things first, I'm going to talk about the good first. We're going to lead with a good foot, because I have a lot of things I want to say that are critical of gaming in 2024, but gaming in 2024 was a really oddball year, right? The way I put it, it was a great year for games, right? We got so many good games, especially if you're an RPG fan. It was a great year for games. It was a tough year for the gaming industry, and we'll get into that. But first things first, given the nature of this channel, let's start with some news, ladies and gentlemen. So tomorrow, the Grand Game Awards, which is like an overseas version of the Game Awards. I don't believe they're connected to Jeff in any way. Jeff Keighley, that is. Square Enix will be presenting. And they've clarified that they have one trailer to show, not multiple, but that Square Enix will be showcasing something tomorrow at this event. So stay tuned for that. Who knows what they drop? If I were to guess, I think it's either going to be something FF9 related, Dragon Quest related, or a new Yoko Taro project. I really think Kingdom Hearts is going to be pretty low on that list because, you know, Lance the Master and I had a good conversation about this. I think it was a couple days ago. Like, Kingdom Hearts is not going to showcase anything where they're not the headliner. Now, look, depending on the size of this show, they could make a lot of noise, but they're not going to bring a Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer to an event that has to share the stage with a lot of other big names. Kingdom Hearts is not a mainstream property. It's a niche property. Kingdom Hearts 3 sold like a mainstream property because, in a sense, the meme of KH3 was very mainstream. I'm not sure we ever get back to that. FF13 remastered, maybe? Maybe. Something like that. That's what I say. I really don't think we're going to see anything Kingdom Hearts until next year. And, I mean, next year is just a few weeks away. But I don't think that's what we see tomorrow. I would absolutely, positively love to be wrong. 100% would love to be wrong. Because, again, Kingdom Hearts, like, think about the KH4 and Missing Link trailer. That was shown off to us as its own standalone thing. They didn't partner up with Summer Games Fest or anything like that. Now, Square Enix did show Kingdom Hearts 3 at E3, but E3 is gone now. And Square Enix isn't cozied up to, say, Summer Games Fest or the Game Awards the way they were with E3. You catch my drift? Anyway, let's get into, one second. Let's make sure no sound comes through for you guys. Let's loop it. And let's start talking about some of the games that launched in, whoa. We can fix that, thankfully. There we go. So, I forgot that I have a different one for when I show you guys tweets and when I show you guys a video. So, let's start with the games. First and foremost, again, 2024, I actually think, depending on the kind of gamer you are, but for a lot of gamers, I think 2024 was a solid year with a really solid lineup. Starting with, of course, is this on loop? Yes, it is. Astro Bot. Which, if you have not played Astro Bot, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do. There's a lot of things that Astro Bot does right that I hope to see more game studios sort of emulate. And the main thing about Astro Bot is that it's not trying to, in a sense, blow you away. It's just trying to be good, clean, fun. Nothing too crazy, doesn't reinvent the wheel. But if you're someone who enjoys platformers of any kind, if you like your Crash Bandicoots or your Super Marios, whatever platformer is your speed, I'm telling you right now, if you like platformers, Astro Bot is as good as it gets. It is so much fun. Like, platformers are pretty low on my list of games that I tend to prefer. You know, I love my Sonic the Hedgehogs and stuff like that. But Astro Bot, in a sense, even though it felt like they weren't intending to blow me away, they actually ended up doing so. Because I feel like they took so many mechanics and they took so many sort of approaches that just reminded me of older games. When games were a little bit more complete. when games were a little bit more thorough in a sense, you know, when they weren't not as buggy as they are today. But this game was an absolute blast. It's the game that you don't realize you're going to love until you actually play it. Like, I love it. My wife is a perfect, like, test for that. She was watching me play it. She thought it was cool to watch. She was having fun watching me. And I told her she should give it a try. And she's like, no, I'm not too crazy about platformers. But I essentially forced the controller in her hand, and I couldn't get it back. Because the game really is just so much fun. And now, look, I want to approach these games from two different standpoints. I want to talk about whether these games were good for the customer and good for the industry, good for the business. Astro Bot is one of those games in a time where a lot of studios are struggling to get it right. Astro Bot did both right. Like, allow me to explain. Astro Bot, even though they're owned by Sony, I think it's Team Asobi, the studio that made this game has about 75 people. 75 people. Now, again, it's a smaller game in scale. It's not a game at the scale of FF7 Rebirth. Obviously, that's going to warrant a bigger team for now. But for a 13 to 15 hour platformer with more than 15 hours worth of content, I really believe you could at least sink 50 to 100 hours in this, running time trials, gathering all the buddies, gathering all the treasures. There's a lot of, like, if you like collecting, like collectathons, it's like they took a little bit from every platformer we love. There's a little Mario Sunshine in there. There's a little Crash Bandicoot in there. There's a little Banjo-Kazooie in there. A little bit of Star Fox in there. Like, there's just a little bit of everything in there, you know? And it's been so much fun to play. It's a game I'm just going to keep coming back to. It's a very casual play. And again, just to get back to the fact that they're a small studio, that's something we need in gaming more. Gaming cannot be full of Ubisofts that have 18,000 employees, or your Capcoms and Square Enix that have 3,000 to 5,000 employees, which is nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with hiring people and having a big company. But gaming can't just be dominated by these titanic studios. We need smaller studios like Team Asobi to pump out these hits. And that's why, you know what, I will stand my ground and 100% say Astro Bot deserves Game of the Year. Now, Astro isn't a fully new IP. He did have a game before this, but he is a fresh IP. He's up and coming. So I think the reason why this game so much deserved Game of the Year, even though it's not my particular Game of the Year, but I can certainly build a case for it, because not only is it an awesome game, it's one of the best games to come out within its genre within the last 10 years. Like, within the last 10 years, I struggle to think of platformers better than this. I could think of some maybe on the same level, like a Mario Odyssey, but I struggle to find one that can truly measure up. Now, here's the thing with it hitting all the notes. Incredible gameplay, satisfying, but it also was good for the industry. Small studio making a big statement with a fresh up-and-coming IP. That's what this industry needs. That's exactly what this industry needs. And I want to see more of it. Because again, I love my big Titanic studios. I love my Square Enix. But the industry cannot just be filled with a bunch of Square Enixes, much as I love them. Okay? And we're going to talk about this. It's going to be a recurring theme on the episode today. We're going to be talking about this. Because I don't think people put enough value in that. I really don't. And the fact that the game runs so smooth. Like, it really does run. I mean, the PS5 is a powerful machine. That certainly helps. But it's a game that runs really, really smooth. So I was very much impressed with it. If anybody enjoys platformers, I highly recommend you check it out. One second, let's see. Can I get you guys on the screen? There we go. Let's give the chat a bit of a voice here. All right, let's pull you guys up there. There we go. But let's see. Let's see what the chat has to say about it. I was ready to jump into my next game, but let me see what you guys are cooking. Okay. It's that good. Highly to the fourth power recommend. If you like Suko, if you like platformers, 100% recommend. If platformers really aren't your thing, then you could probably skip over this one. But if you've been itching for a good platformer, I'm telling you, Astro Bot is going to scratch that itch. And the other thing too, and we're going to get into this because I think this is also important, it is a love letter to Sony. It's a love letter to gaming. And we need more of that. I want to feel the love. Adonai says, more devs seem to equal less quality somehow, more disjointed and less cohesive. You know, it's not even so much about less devs. It's about all the middlemen and women who get in the devs' way. The bigger a company gets, the bigger all these other departments have to get. The bigger their HR department gets, the bigger their editorial department gets, the bigger all these other hands in the pot, right? The devs, the people writing the stories, programming the code, all that, the more of them, the merrier in some senses, for the most part. But I really think it's the bloat. It's these middlemen and women who are kind of getting in the way and holding up the process, right? Which is why I think slimmer teams seem to do better. I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit probably later. Square Enix is slimming down a lot of their studio teams in that sense, which is a good thing for the most part. For the most part. We are going to talk about layoffs, by the way. That's the other thing. You know what? Good time to talk about it right now, right? That's the other thing. This is an industry. Actually, no, we're talking about the good. I'm saving the bad of 2024 for the second half of the episode. By the way, yeah, I clearly need a haircut, so it's a beanie episode. It's a beanie episode. Anyway, back to it. We'll touch on that. Josh C says, mostly leftovers from Japan studio, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it for all we know, that could have been a B team. A B team that knocked it out of the park. Capitalist Landy, sounding off strong. I prefer the term free market, right? I think people should exchange goods and services freely, with minimal regulation, but that's not what we do here. We talk video games here. But honestly, like at the end of the day, that's what I want for gaming. I want the market to be free. I don't want there to be censorship. I don't want there to be things getting in the way, Again, guys, not a political statement, right? Not a political statement. Just saying I want the devs to be able to create freely, and I want them to sell us their product with as little in the way as possible. And we will, when it comes to censorship, talk about that later. Sony should release the Astro Bot Rescue Mission, the VR game, on PSVR 2. I've never even heard of that, Noct. I've never even heard of that. I'd love to check it out. I would love to check it out. I recommend A Hat in Time. It's a lovely game. Shout out. Thank you, Will. Funny because the itch has been scratched by Dying Light 2 lately. Hey, if the itch is scratched, the itch is scratched. If you scratch it too much, you're going to get it's going to get all red. You don't want to scratch too much. But you know what? Maybe when Dying Light 2, when you get a little bit, not bored of it, but when you start to itch for other games, maybe then you can give it a shot. Big companies, big fails, indie means success. It's the way the industry is trending towards. Right? And we're going to talk about that on the second half a lot. So stick around, guys. The kind of thing we're on right now, I want to dive deep on it, but I want to save it for the back end of the podcast because I do want to focus on the good. 100% says Adonai. Yeah, look, you listen. Here's the beauty of the Landy Lodge. I really don't care what you believe. Just respect what I believe. I'll respect what you believe, and we can have fun. That's it. Let's move on. Let's see. What do I want? I had a list here. Perfect. Let me find this. Perfect. Let's mute this. Here's a game that I feel like didn't get enough credit and wasn't talked about enough. Let's pull this up. And that's going to be Tekken 8. That's going to be Tekken 8, right? So I love fighting games. For me, they come number 2 to RPGs. RPGs will always be my favorite. Fighting games are number 2. Love them. I love platform fighters like Smash. I love 3D fighters like Tekken. I love 2D fighters like Dragon Ball FighterZ. I love fighters. Tekken 8 was amazing. I have to be honest. I think as a game, it's hard for me. I've talked about this a few times. And I compare it to Street Fighter pretty often. I thought Tekken's combat system was incredible. I thought they did a really good job with it. I think the game pleased a lot of fans, not just of Tekken, but of 3D fighters, right? I'm a big Soul Calibur guy. I've not played a lot of Tekken in my life, but I found myself very satisfied by Tekken 8. It scratched my Soul Calibur itch, but only for a few months. The itch is back. But I'm really happy with what they've done. We got stuff over on Twitch. I've been missing Twitch. Lands the Master with a subscription. And Linux Rock says, I struggle with platforming sections of games, and Astro Bot made me wish I was better at the game. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because I grew up playing platformers. It comes pretty smooth, but I never considered that maybe the game might be difficult for some. Very interesting. Okay. Let's see. Okay, but like, has this ever happened before? I might be bugging, but I don't know. I'm gonna look. Happen? What do you mean? Has what happened before, Suko? Has what happened? Shout it out. If a seller tells me, hey, look at the sharp, realistic graphics here, I'll take a nap. But another tells me, look at the way I made them jump over the lava pit in this game. That's hype. That's 100% too. You know, and that's something Tekken did very well also, was every time they put out a trailer, like for a character, right, they showed you how that character played. Like, that was something I thought Tekken did very well, is the way they marketed the game. They were constantly showing you gameplay, right? You had your cool cutscenes like you're seeing on the screen now, where they show you, you know, the fighter says a voice line, but then bam, they show you right how that character plays. Look at the Clive announcement. Bam! Right away, wasted no time showing you how that character plays. I'm almost finished with Echoes of Wisdom, most underrated game of the year. I'm still getting around to that. I'll have to circle back with you on that, Josh. I'll have to circle back with you on that. But yeah, hold on, let me pull up my list. Things I want to say about Tekken. Not enough love, amazing combat system, and of course the guest characters, right? I love it, love it, love it, love it. When a fighting game has good guest characters. And, you know, both Tekken and Street Fighter have done good with that. Both games have done pretty good with that. I'm more partial to Tekken's guest characters, but I can appreciate that Street Fighter is involving a lot of other fighting game characters in their game. That said, I love seeing fighting games do well. I think the video game industry does well when fighting games do well. I think when we think a lot about the golden era of gaming, that's when a lot of fighting games were thriving. And I really feel like we're headed towards a renaissance in fighting games. I really, really do. I don't have too much to say about Tekken 8. I really did love the game. I think it deserves to be in the Game of the Year conversation. I personally wouldn't give it Game of the Year. But really, really, really solid game that I feel doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Okay, I'm almost finished with Echoes of... Oh, okay, a fighting game winning Game of the Year. Like, I'm with you here, 1,000 man, but man, what a tall task. I'm pretty sure Soul Calibur 1 on the Dreamcast... Got it right over there. Soul Calibur 1 on the Dreamcast, I believe, won Game of the Year. And it might be the only fighting game to do it. Tekken does it better. They feel like they're actually belonging in universe for the crossovers. That too, you know what's something, again, I you know, shout out and a lot of love to my wife. She said what she liked about watching me play Tekken is she felt like she was actually watching a fight. Like with other fighters like Street Fighter and Smash and again, it's not a knock at these other fighters, mind you, but she was like, with Tekken, she's like, I really feel like I'm watching a street brawl. You don't really get that with, I mean, it's funny because there's Street Fighter, right? But Street Fighter is, I really love the game. I'm not knocking it. I really love it. I think its one-player campaign should revolutionize fighting games forever. That said, it doesn't feel like as equal as an exchange as the others. So I'll leave it at that. I didn't want to harp on Tekken too long. One of my favorites, but not one that, you know, I think belongs in the Game of the Year conversation. But we're going to do our Game of the Year episode next week. But I thought Tekken was very good for 2024. I think it was a great way to kick off the year. Got the year off to a very strong start. Speaking of getting the year off to a very, very strong start, we're going to talk about one of the biggest games of the year, probably the biggest game of the year for this channel, and that's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Let's put that on loop. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Damn, you're right, Soul Calibur did win. And it damn right. Damn right. It's the best it's the best one out there, man. It's the best. I'll die on that hill. I'll die on that hill. I will. Soul Calibur. Better than Tekken. Better than Street Fighter. Better than Smash. Better than Dragon Ball Spark and Zero. Better than all of them. Better than all. Anyway, I'm getting distracted here. What's up, Artist Joint? FF7 Rebirth. Okay, getting into it. Absolutely loved this game. No other way to say it. Absolutely, positively fell in love with this game. Fell in love with it. It was so much fun. As a longtime fan of FF7, I felt seen, I felt appreciated, and I felt loved by this game. I feel, again, I really like to see people or devs have a love for their audience, a love for their legacy audience, which is a foreign concept for a lot of people today. But to see them give nothing but love to fans of this franchise for almost 30 years now, beautiful thing to see. Let's be real, gang. FF is winning. Put one in the air for the rest of the games. Pack them up. We're going to talk about that, Suko. We're going to talk about that because happy as I was with Final Fantasy this year, there's some business decisions surrounding the Final Fantasy brand that I'm not too crazy about. But anyway, let's keep rolling. Look. Anytime, like, it's hard, guys, in some ways because, you know, I'm a child of the 90s and early 2000s. And so many of the franchises that I've loved have either faded into obscurity or just like pissed off their audiences to the point that they're irrelevant now. It really made me happy, not as just a fan of FF7, but a fan of video games, to see the world of FF7 continue to thrive. That's very important. It's important to honor legacy. It's important to honor history, right? For instance, like, think about Nintendo with Mario. If Nintendo made a bad Mario game or a string of bad Mario games, you realize how bad that would hurt their bottom line and their company's perception? And I'm talking about a mainline Mario game. You know what I mean? You going for that plat, Josh? I think Josh has the plat. Josh has the plat, Suko. I played Rebirth for 500 hours in 8 months straight. Dude, it's a game worthy of that. I think I'm at 200 hours now. But it's going to rack up. It's going to rack up to 3 or 4 at least. But it was, got it already. That's our man. That's our man. But again, it's good for the industry when a franchise or a game that's this old gets honored, gets the love and respect and creativity that it deserves. And again, this game is not for everybody. Let me make that clear. If you're a fan of old FF7, but you don't like Rebirth, you're justified in that. You're justified in that, but you can't tell me they didn't try. You know what I mean? Like, the game's littered with love and nods to the compilation and to the fan base and things of the like, you know? It was a beautiful experience. Let me see. What have I got here? The combat. I mean, we're going to do the Game of the Year episode next week, so I could talk more extensively about things like combat. But the combat was fantastic. It was a love letter to the IP, which is good for gaming. And look, here's what I'm going to say. And this would be big, not just for Square, but with Final Fantasy being one of the biggest franchises in gaming history, this would be good for gaming too. I believe Rebirth is the new model. I believe Rebirth at the least should be the new model for a Final Fantasy game. Now, I can make the argument that Final Fantasy 17 should be turn-based. I really could, and that's another conversation for another day. Because Square Enix, by switching from turn-based to action, they're now competing in a much larger pool. I mean, guys, how many action games are out there? There's 5 million action games, and a lot of them are really good. So the struggle with Final Fantasy wanting to compete with action games is it's a larger pool to compete against, as opposed to turn-based, which is a much smaller pool to compete against. And competition's good. But them making a bid to move this series into straight action RPG, this is the model. What they did here with Rebirth, this is what they got to stick to. This is what's worth sticking to. And again, I'm not even saying the combat has to be the same. I just mean the way the game's rolled out, the way you explore the map, the way that it's not open world, but it's like open zones. Again, I think open zone is better than open world. 100%. 100%. For instance, my favorite open world game, Breath of the Wild. Not my favorite Zelda game of all time, but my favorite Zelda experience. Because it's one of those things where as you revisit it, it loses some of its flavor, as opposed to like a Twilight Princess or a Majora's Mask, where as you keep going back, like there's still a freshness there. I'm not knocking Breath of the Wild. Incredible game. But I'll take Rebirth's open zones over Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom's open world any day. Because here's the thing about open world. I'm sorry, I like open world games. It seems like an excuse to have a post-apocalyptic landscape that's just barren. We're doing open world, but the world's in a post-apocalypse, so it's kind of barren. You know what I mean? As opposed to Rebirth, which is like, this is a civilization with advancing technology, and all these open zones are filled with life, and they're brimming, and it feels lived in. You know? That I much prefer that to open world. And again, not knocking open world, not knocking the example, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom that came up, not at all. But I find it very peculiar that most of these open world games are post-apocalyptic. So it's almost like you have an excuse not to really fill things up. Because there's a challenge to that, right? Like as you fill a world out, the game gets bigger, right? The file size gets bigger, optimization becomes more difficult. I'm not saying there aren't good reasons to take that approach. There are. I'm just saying I think this open zone, lived-in world is such a better approach. And I think it creates a much more memorable experience. Hilarious, I've been playing New Vegas lately. How's that going? Are you enjoying it? Open world games be empty as shit. Whoa. My light went out. Why? Hold the phone. Hold the phone. Did it come unplugged or did this thing just burn out? 1 second. 1 second, guys. Oh, I think this light burned out. Oh, I think the light is cooked. Okay. All right, then. Here's what I can do. We'll do that. I better sit. We're doing a late night episode. The vibe just changed, fam. The vibe just changed. But we're chilling. I'll just sit a little closer to the screen, get that light on me. All right, Ocarina of Time is still my favorite open zone game. It holds up. I love Ocarina of Time. Oh, I'm knocking it for sure. I hate the trend, and we still don't have the fire open world zombie survival joint DayZ is punk. I gotcha, Suko. But I'm with you. I mean, the day that games advance to the point that we could fill out a full open world with, like, Civilization, I'm into it. Okay. But again, back to FF7. As we covered, one of the greats of the year. Amazing combat. Keeps an old legacy IP alive and thriving, which is good for the industry. And it was a love letter. It really felt like it. And again, I can't stress how important it is when we're living in a world where a lot of old IPs have just faded away. It's good that FF7 thrived in the way that it did. Okay, we are 35 minutes in. I gotta start picking it up a little bit. How's this view look now? Oh, nice and dark. The lodge goes dark. That's where we're at, guys. All right, give me a sec. What do we got next? Oh, we're gonna get on that. Oh, this is fun. This will be fun. 1 second. 1 little second, guys. Okay. After that, let's do Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. So, I really liked this game. But there's a reason I'm going to bring it up in this conversation of what's good for the industry. Let me tell you why I really, 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 really enjoyed this game and like it. Because as someone who enjoys Tekken and Street Fighter and Soul Calibur, some of these more technical fighters where it's really important that everyone's balanced, or you balance it as much as possible and it gets patched and you make sure the game stays even because of its thriving competitive scene. Here's the thing, guys. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, as far as getting involved in a competitive scene, not a good fighting game. It's not a good competitive fighting game. But here's why I say it's good for the industry in 2024. Because this game was not made for people who want to compete in fighting game tournaments. This game was made for Dragon Ball Z fans. And as a lifelong fan of Dragon Ball Z, I loved this game so much. And a lot of its one-player modes were really good, which fighting games always struggle with. So even though, like with Soul Calibur 6, one of my favorite fighting games of all time, I was super hooked on the online scene. All about competing, getting into the top 1,000 in the country and shit. Like, that's what got me. But with Sparking Zero, what got me was like doing those little what-if missions and story missions. And like, you know, it's just, again, it was just fun for Dragon Ball Z fans. And that's okay. You don't have to make a fighting game that's perfectly technical and satisfies the whole fighting game community. They didn't make this game for Street Fighter fans. They didn't make this game for Tekken fans. They made this game for Dragon Ball Z fans, and I want that embraced more. I'm picking that up as soon as it gets a decent sale. It's so much fun. It's really a lot of fun. But if you try to compete online, you're going to drive yourself crazy. So many people cheese the fights. There's 1.5 million ways to cheese the fights. I have this on loop, right? Yeah, okay, good. So competitively, it'll drive you nuts. Not that you can't have fun online, but like, if you're really being competitive, it's going to drive you insane. It harkens back to Budokai. Exactly. It's just there. It's just there for Dragon Ball fans to have fun. I keep talking about love letters, right? It's a love letter to Dragon Ball fans. And there's a reason I'm bringing up all this love letter stuff. You'll see it when we get to the second half. But again, I just wanted to bring that up for Sparking Zero because it's like, look, you don't need to make, like for fighting games, you don't need to make a fighting game that satisfies all the fighting game fans. No, you just need to make a Dragon Ball game that satisfies the Dragon Ball fans. Now, let's move on to one of the GOATs. This will certainly be in my Game of the Year conversation. No questions asked. And that is Metaphor ReFantazio. ReFantazio. What a game. What a game. I'm not finished with it yet. I'm past the halfway point. I'm approaching the end. But man, am I having a blast. This game is so much fun. I have to be real. In RPGs, a lot of the times the characters really hook me. The characters didn't hook me too much. And they're not bad characters. They're good characters. And the voice acting for them is tremendous. The fact that nobody in this cast got a Game of the Year nomination, disgraceful. Disgraceful. I would have given it to Stroll's voice actor. I would have given it to Heismay's voice actor. I would have given it to Hulkenberg's voice actor. So many good voice actors, especially Heismay. Heismay is my fucking dude, okay? Heismay is my fucking guy, all right? Okay, I've only known Heismay for a few weeks, but if anybody hurts him, I'll fucking kill him. In Minecraft, in Fortnite, however the meme goes. Metaphor is for the people. It is Adonai. It is. What up, Lands? What is going on? Go to game. Lands the master, ladies and gentlemen. Lands the master. We were bringing you up earlier, bro. We were bringing you up earlier. We'll probably bring you up again. Mike says, I had a lot of fun with NCAA 2025. Yeah, I mean, look. Again, I'm not a sports game guy, but I did hear a few good things about that game. It did manage to reach my ears. Now, let's keep this rolling. Metaphor. Okay. So again, the characters were good, but they didn't grab me the way other characters in RPGs tend to do. But that's okay. I really enjoyed them. I really liked them. The thing that I think makes Metaphor so cool is the lore. It is the lore. The lore. Lance, we were talking about how Kingdom Hearts has got to be the headliner. I brought up that conversation. But, you know, Lance, when we get into it, Lance, can I ask you a question? Can we show some of your Stellar Blade gameplay tonight? Would that be all right? Can I pull up some Lance the Master Stellar Blade combat that we can showcase? That'd be amazing. But, again, with Metaphor, it wasn't so much the characters that grabbed me, it was the lore. The lore grabbed me. Everything with, with archetypes. I mean, you guys know I'm a fiend for archetypes. But everything with archetypes and sort of how the world operates and the sort of, the divisions and the sort of, how do you put it? The conflict that's at hand and the way they're resolving it. It's funny. It reminded me of Dawn Trail. But I liked the way Metaphor did it better. Metaphor and Dawn Trail, FF14, have very similar plots. But I like the way Metaphor did it better. I've got to say. And listen. For me to say that about FF14, you guys know I'm a sicko for FF14. But Metaphor handled that plot better. I've got to say. When it comes to Dawn Trail. So, again, the lore was incredible. But again, let me tell you why this was so good for gaming. That's been the big conversation, right? Okay, the game is fun, but why is it good for gaming? And I'll tell you why. Because it's a true RPG, man. It is a true RPG. Not that the RPGs we've discussed and loved aren't true RPGs. And I use that term loosely, right? Rebirth is a true RPG. I'm not saying it's not. But my point is, with Metaphor, it's like, for instance, the first game I ever learned was chess. Chess was the first game I ever learned. And my favorite thing about RPGs like Metaphor is it really taps into the chess part of my brain. Rebirth doesn't do that so much. Metaphor taps right into that part of my brain that learned chess. And I got to think, okay, what classes are going to work for this fight? Maybe I got to make this person that class and this person that class, but this character needs to learn more mage classes. They don't have enough magic. I can't rely on just this person for magic. So let's put the magic archetype on you. And it's like, there's all this plotting and planning. I almost feel like, that meme of Charlie Day with like the board? That's how I feel like strategizing for Metaphor. And I love that. When part of the gameplay is like putting the controller down and thinking like this, I love that. I love that. When gameplay involves nothing with the controller and goes into your brain for like strategizing and stuff. Like, again, I grew up on Final Fantasy, not Dragon Quest. I know this is par for the course with Dragon Quest, but it appears to me that the most popular RPGs that are out there, for the most part, aren't as true to the RPG true to the RPG genre as Metaphor. And I want to see more of this. That's the other thing too. Turn-based ain't dead, baby. I'm tired of people. Let me tell you, I am tired of people talking to me like turn-based is a thing of the past. Oh, we used to just do turn-based because the technology wasn't there to do action, right? Turn-based combat was never a substitute for technology that was lacking the ability to make action games. That is not true. Turn-based combat comes from the grandfather of RPGs, and that's Dungeons and Dragons, okay? So to me, I guess what I'm trying to say is turn-based combat to me is the most true-to-form RPG system you can have. Now again, Baldur's Gate 3, relatively turn-based, won Game of the Year last year. That was great. I'm glad Metaphor has taken the baton and is keeping it going. Turn-based is not a thing of the past. Octopath Traveler 2 is one of the greatest games to come out in the last few years, as is Metaphor ReFantazio. I love Metaphor for a lot of reasons. But the reason why it's been so good for gaming and is so good for gaming is because, again, it reiterates that turn-based combat is not a thing of the past, and it shows that you don't have to handhold your audience. You don't have to handhold your audience. You can put all the RPG mechanics in there that require the player to put the controller down and think for a few minutes. And think about their strategy and say, you know what? I'm unprepared for this. I got to go into the wild and boost these other classes. You know, I've been too hooked on my favorite classes. I need to go explore other classes that I normally wouldn't, you know? I heard Octopath. Andy Brew is here. Andy Brew is here. What's up, Andy? What up, dude? What up? Where's Len? Absolutely? Okay, we'll be able to show it off. What up, Andy? Clip this rant, make it a short. Oh, God. You know, when the Lodge gets rolling again and we have a lot more Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy content to discuss, maybe I'll bring someone on to start doing clips and start clipping me. Anyway, the Tower Dragons and Metaphor were such good capstone challenges. I'm excited to get into those. I'm really excited to get into those. I've been taking my time with Metaphor because I've enjoyed it as a slow burn, but now that the end of the year's coming up and I want to do my Game of the Year episode, I'm like marathoning it now, baby. But it's been so good. Octopath, more like Octopath to Glory, it is. No, that's another one. That was part of my rant last year. I'm not going to get into it. But Octopath Traveler 2, don't sleep on it. Don't sleep on it, man. Do not sleep on it. Okay, let's keep this moving. There is another game. You know, I wasn't planning on talking about this because I didn't play it. But you know what? Andy being in the chat did remind me of this. So let's actually pull this up right now. Let's talk about this game, which has been the topic of a lot of conversation lately, especially, and that's Black Myth Wukong, a game I have not played, but may or may not get around to it just because I enjoy Journey to the West. Any spin on Journey to the West seems to satisfy me, so maybe I will enjoy Black Myth Wukong. But let me tell you something. Let me tell you something right now. You guys ready? You guys ready? And this will be true for the next game we talk about too. This is a game that loves its fans. And that's a recurring theme if you guys haven't noticed about all these things I'm talking about that are good for gaming. This is a game that loves its fans. And the bottom line is, okay? The bottom line about Black Myth Wukong. It sold over 20 million copies. It sold over 20 in an industry that is struggling, where AAA games cannot even break even anymore. The entire industry needs to ask, how did Black Myth Wukong do it? How did Black Myth Wukong do it? And I'll tell you part of it is the game only cost $40 million to make. Compare that to the average modern AAA game, which cost $200 million to make. So this game, this studio made a AAA game for 1/5 of the price, and it sold 20 million copies. What's beautiful about this, guys, is the game didn't need to sell 20 million copies to break even. In fact, let's do a little math. Can I pull it up on the screen? That'll be fun. Check it out, guys. Let's do... Oh, wrong way. let's do, let's do 40 million divided by $70 for the game. Actually, hold on. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to play this fair. 40 million. Now, between taxes and fees, they're not going to get $70 a game. They're probably going to get about $45 a game. So let's divide that by 45. They didn't even need to sell 1 million copies to break even. This is one of the reasons they were successful too. The bloat that has plagued the industry is not present in Black Myth Wukong. You know, I didn't even notice that my menu is up here. Let's give you guys a more complete look. There we go. There we go. So, I don't want to hear any excuses. They made this game, which, look, Astro Bot won Game of the Year at the Game Awards, but do you want to know what the real Game of the Year is? In my opinion. Scratch that. It's not the game I would pick for Game of the Year, but I really believe Black Myth Wukong is the technical Game of the Year. It was the biggest financial success. It sold more copies than any other game that was nominated. It has a fan base that loves it. Okay? One of my gripes with the Game Awards is that the player's voice, it's okay to let these gacha games compete, but these gacha games, they all incentivize their audience to go out and vote. Hey, if we win player's voice, we'll give you 10,000 fake dollars or 10,000 Kupo coin, whatever the fuck, you know? Even with those incentives, Black Myth Wukong won the vote. And not to mention other award shows. I believe Golden Joystick Awards, it won, which was decided by fan voting. It won the vote. So if you believe that the player's voice matters, then Black Myth Wukong is 100% the Game of the Year of 2024. No hate on Astro Bot. I was singing its praises 40 minutes ago. There's no question to me. Black Myth Wukong is, when I think of 2024, to me, this is the Game of the Year. Because the fans came out for it. The fans voted for it in every show it was nominated in. And again, words speak, but numbers scream. I'll say it again. Words speak, but numbers scream. They had an incredibly healthy budget, and they sold more than anybody else, minus maybe NCAA. In an industry that is struggling, AAA-wise, Black Myth Wukong soars high. It had a healthy budget, treated its audience and its customers well, and the sales speak for it. They should be very proud of themselves over at Game Science. They should be very proud of themselves. Can't stick around, but wanted to say hi. God bless all of you. Jesus loves you all. Thank you, Warrior Kid. Thank you very much for the kind words. It's very much very much appreciated here. Okay, let's move on. Oop, wrong button. Wrong button. There we go. Let's move on. Let's move on now. That's Black Myth Wukong. I can't speak too much on it because I didn't play it. But if we're talking about what was good for 2024, there's no question Black Myth Wukong. No question. All right. All right. Let's see. What else do we have here? Where is it? Where is it? Okay. Okay. There you are. There you are. I was looking for you. I was looking for you. Let's talk about one of my favorite games of the year. One of my favorite games of the year, which is Stellar Blade. And we're going to pull up some Lands the Master. We're going to pull up some Lands the Master clips very soon, so you guys can see a little bit of this game's insane combat. Which, look, I have a lot I want to say about Stellar Blade. You know, when I think on 2024, what game to me? I don't even know the. Here, let's take a swig of water. 1 second. Okay. Let's talk about Stellar Blade. So, you guys have heard me sing this game's praises. I'll continue to do so. So, here's... I loved this game's combat. Let me put things in perspective. I think FF7 Rebirth had the best combat system of the year. By virtue of being able to cycle between so many different characters, which keeps the experience fresh. Here's what I'm going to tell you about Stellar Blade. Stellar Blade, Eve, is the is the best combat warrior of the year. I'm trying to find the right way to word this. I guess what I'm trying to say is it feels better to play as Eve. Okay, let me preface. Even though FF7 Rebirth was my favorite combat system of the year, and one that I hope Square Enix continues to build on, Eve, it feels better to play as Eve than any character in Rebirth, in my opinion. Right? Rebirth is the better overall system, but it feels better to play as Eve than any individual fighter from Rebirth. That's how much fun this combat is. That's how much it, I've seen a lot of people, for instance, they'll pull up some gameplay, and do I have this on loop? Yes, I do. Okay. So, for instance, somebody shared some footage of Astro Bot, and someone was like, none of that looks too impressive. Guys, it's not necessarily about how a gameplay looks. It's about how it feels. How it feels. And one of the things Stellar Blade did really well, they fully utilized the haptic feedback on that PS5 controller. So Stellar Blade is one of the few games in the last 3 or 4 years that I actually played that felt next gen. Stellar Blade is one of the few games that actually felt next gen because of the way they utilized the haptic feedback on the controller. So, a lot of credit to them for that. It felt amazing. It feels amazing. So, let me now move into something else. Something that, all right, look. Inevitably, I'm going to upset someone with what I'm about to say. But if we're talking about gaming in 2024, here's the big thing about Stellar Blade. And I'm going to go into huge detail next week when we talk about Game of the Year, because Stellar Blade is one of my finalists. Stellar Blade is I'll tell you guys my finalists for Game of the Year before I continue today's topic. FF7 Rebirth, Stellar Blade, Metaphor ReFantazio, and Astro Bot. But Astro Bot's like falling down a little bit. Those are my 4 picks. All 4 of them deserve it. Stellar Blade included. So, here we go. The thing about Stellar Blade to me, and the year 2024 in gaming, and we're going to talk about it on the later end when we get into some of our criticisms of the industry, but there's no way to avoid this. With Stellar Blade, in my opinion, it gave no Black Myth. Kevin, I haven't played Black Myth. That's why. So it could definitely deserve to be in that conversation. I just haven't played it, so I can't speak on it. Next week's episode is like my game of the year, not like the industry's game of the year. It's my game of the year. I'll probably play Black Myth next year, but let's talk about Stellar Blade here, okay? First, I'm going to tell you one of the reasons why I think this game, and the reason why I think it deserved to be nominated for Game of the Year is because this game is everything the industry needs. In fact, it's everything the industry had been asking for. Everything the industry had been asking for. And look. Okay. There's no way around it. I'm done beating around the bush. Okay. So I've been running the Landy Lodge for 6 years. And in those 6 years, I have been fully immersed in the online gaming discourse. And even before then, rewind the clocks 20 years, I was on GameFAQs.com arguing with people on the forums that Kingdom Hearts 2 was a good game and it was better than Kingdom Hearts 1. 20 years later, I'm doing the same thing with Kingdom Hearts 3. Anyway, I've been crawling around gaming discourse pretty much my whole life, but the last 6 years, I've been fully immersed in it. And I have seen outlets, journalists, creators, influencers, they're all asking for the same things. What have they all been asking for? We need more female protagonists in games. Lead protagonists. We need more female lead protagonists in games. We need more minority representation. We need more small studios. We need more new IP. Right? Everyone's been asking that. From journalist to outlet. What do people want? Small studios, new IPs, a female lead, minority representation. Yet, in 2024, all the people who were asking for that, for some reason, had a problem with Stellar Blade. I'm not going to name anyone specifically because I'm not a beef tuber, and it extends beyond anybody that I actually know and goes into some of the biggest names in the online discourse scene. And these are people who have been asking for female protagonists, minority representation, small studio, new IP. And what did Stellar Blade give you? Female lead protagonist, modeled after a South Korean woman, made in South Korea, new IP, and a small studio that used to just make a mobile game, now making its first console game. This is everything people have been asking for, myself included. Myself included. Yet for some reason, with this particular game, first before the outlets and the journalists even got their hands on it, they were trying to dismantle it. So to me, what 2024 revealed to me is that if you see anybody out there advocating for these things, particularly if they're fans of action games, because I've seen a few of it, if there's anyone out there who's a fan of action games and they're constantly preaching, we need more female protagonists, we need more minority representation, we need more new IPs, we need more small studios. If they've been saying all that, they like action games, and they didn't even give Stellar Blade a try, don't take them seriously. They don't deserve to be taken seriously. Now again, maybe you want those things, but you look at Stellar Blade and you go, not my kind of game. Completely fair. Completely fair. But I've seen people who all they play is action games. All they've been asking for years is what Stellar Blade gave them, but then they turned their nose up at it when they got it. Probably because the wrong people enjoyed it for some reason, or something stupid or trivial, right? Red flags, big red flags, Lance. Big red flags. Because again, those are things I want. I love playing as a female protagonist. Guys, you watch me play fighting games. Literally all my fighting game mains are women. Like, I've been looking for that. And when Stellar Blade served it to me on a silver platter, I went, ooh, we eating good today, boy. You know what I'm saying? Ooh, we eating good today. I don't know. Again, I always give people the benefit of the doubt, guys. I always do my best to give people the benefit of the doubt. 3 strikes and you're out, but I give you the benefit of the doubt. A lot of people who I gave the benefit of the doubt really let me down with this. Because again, it's one thing if you look at the game and you're like, even though I wanted all those things, this particular game is not for me. That's fine. That's fine. But you have people who, anyway, I'm going to back it up. Reina is the GOAT. Suko, I'm a Reina main. Although Clive's slowly taking Reina's spot. But we'll see if Reina holds it up. Might be novelty that Clive is taking it over. Landy, how did you feel about Forspoken? Didn't play it. Can't comment on it. But what I will say is, what I saw of it did not interest me. But I can't speak on it. Can't say if it was good or bad. Didn't play it. As far as Stellar Blade goes, phenomenal. And again, there's a lot of people who I just don't take seriously anymore. Because they say they want all those things because it gets likes. And then when it's actually served to them, for whatever reason they have, they turn their nose up at it. Again, I've been doing this 6 years. You guys can follow what I've said. I'm pretty logically consistent about all this stuff. So when Stellar Blade was served up, I jumped on it. It's a fucking phenomenal game. It deserves to be played. It deserves to be beloved. Again, exactly how I feel about Forspoken as well. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. It didn't. Just like I'm saying with Stellar Blade. If you looked at Stellar Blade and you're like, you know what? This game's not really for me. That's perfectly reasonable. That's perfectly fine. You're not obligated to say anything or play anything. But yeah, with Forspoken, I was like, not for me. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, the game flopped, bro. Because I don't have a stake in that outcome. You know what I mean? I don't have a dog in that fight. But if I played the game and it sucked, then yeah, I'd be like, damn, they took my $70. Hope it fails. But I didn't play it, so I can't comment on it. But again, she's the highest played main on the game, bro. I was salt when I learned that. I don't play her. The Mishima style, bro. Reina's too fun to play as. And she's cute. People like that. But again, with Stellar Blade, it revealed a lot for the industry to me. The outlets, the journalists, some creators, some influencers, they are not to be taken seriously. They are not to be taken seriously. I don't know what motivates them. But it ain't good games. Because this is a beautiful game. Fresh, I'm going to say it one more time before we move on. Fresh IP, brand new IP, small studio of 300 people. Ubisoft has 18,000 people. 18,000 people. They got 300. And look what they did. And that's my point. That's why I love this game so much, and that's why I think it's so good for 2024. If I had to give, because I'm not going to pick it based on something like this, but if I was choosing my game of the year based on what the gaming industry should model after, this is the model. This is the model. They made it on a small budget, and then, guys, just like we were talking before about Black Myth Wukong, once Stellar Blade sold 1 million copies, they were already over $20 million in the green. That's healthy, right? That's good practice. That's what leads to a thriving industry. Games that are made on controlled and healthy budgets that can profit without having to sell too many copies. We're at a point where games are so expensive to make, if they don't sell 5 to 10 million copies in the first 2 months, they flop or they're considered flops. That's why Final Fantasy 16 can sell close to 4 or 5 million copies, and Square Enix goes, didn't meet expectations. Because it cost them $150 million to make. Meanwhile, we don't know the exact budget for Stellar Blade, but it was made on a smaller budget. And even when it sold 1 million copies way back in like May or June when we got the news, that was enough to propel it into $20 million of profit. As somebody who wants this industry to thrive, games like Stellar Blade, fresh IP, healthy budget, small studio, make a huge profit, that's where the industry needs to go. This is the model. This is the model right here. And this should be championed, bro. This should be championed. New IP, crazy successful, huge profits. Because here's the thing, guys. You can feel however you want to feel about money and free markets and all that how you want to feel. If these businesses fail, we don't get video games. Bottom line. And observing something is true is not the same as saying I support it. But if these businesses don't thrive, we don't get video games. And in fact, when they stop thriving, we get worse video games. So a studio that can sell 1 million copies and make $20 million plus of profit with a game at the scope and level and size and quality of Stellar Blade deserves to be championed. And I'm telling you right now, if Stellar Blade 2, which there will be a Stellar Blade 2, if Stellar Blade 2 has the same level of success, Eve is going to become a gaming icon a la 2B, Lara Croft, and Bayonetta. Rest in peace, Lara Croft. They have torched that IP to the ground. But who knows? Maybe she can make a revival. I'm always rooting for her. All right. Let's show you guys some Lands gameplay. You guys want to watch some Lands the Master gameplay? Well, actually, I'll turn the sound on for it too. You guys want to see a little bit of this? Let me get let's put them on crispy 1080p. Crispy 1080p. All right. So some context. Lands the Master might be in fact, he is in the 1% of Stellar Blade players. Lands the Master is in the 1% of Stellar Blade players. Allow me to explain. You'll notice that Lands is using the skin suit. Now, he's not. That skin suit isn't there because Lands is a horny boy. No. That skin suit is there because that's Stellar Blade's version of level 1 crit. You want to put Eve in the skin suit? Well, guess what? You're going to die in one hit. That's the catch. You want to put Eve in a skin suit? She dies in one hit. Again, that's the catch. But you know what? Let's watch a little bit of Lands. Watch Lands do his thing. And this is what I mean, guys. Let me lower this a little bit. Like the combat, it feels as good as it looks flashy. Yeah, Lands, this is like my favorite one to watch. I watch some of your Stellar Blade fights sometime because they're so good. This is probably my favorite one to watch. One of the best fights in the game easily. So good. And all the boss fights were amazing. The amount of variety, that's the other thing. Here, I'll mute this momentarily. The amount of variety that you get between the different bosses, the different patterns you have to memorize. The versatility there is so good. And like, this is what I mean, where I'm like, this game deserves to be championed in so many ways. And again, guys, take note, Lands is not taking any damage. He will not get hit once, right? What's the title of this? Stellar Blade, unidentified Natiba, no damage, skin suit, no shield. He's in the 1%, fam. Our boy Lands in the 1%. You want to see, here's the thing, man. You want to see good gameplay in action games? Lands the Master's the guy to follow. If you're not watching him on YouTube or Twitch, you are missing out. You like action games like Kingdom Hearts, Stellar Blade, Lance is the guy to follow. Oh, shit, that's kind of dope. That's what I'm saying. But again, skin suit fun to look at, and you die in one hit. You got to pay the price. There are no solutions, only trade-offs. Remember that, okay? That's going to help you a lot in life. There are no pure solutions, only trade-offs. That means no chip damage from blocks either. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You know? It's very impressive. And again, if you think the combat looks flashy, it feels better than it looks. I promise you. I promise you, it feels better than it looks. It's a brilliant game. It's a brilliant game. More people need to play it. And I think it's emblematic of what's good about the industry. And I think the industry's response to it shows you what's wrong with the industry. Okay, we talked about all the things we love, even though Stellar Blade started to bleed in where I wanted to take the second half of this conversation. Let me get my notes out here. I did take notes. Okay, let's talk about some of the tough things in the industry. We touched on a lot. Again, 2024 was a great year for games, but a tough year for the industry. Great years for games, tough year for the industry. A lot of great games came out, but not all of them did well. Not all of them performed. And in fact, there were a lot of flops. In fact, the biggest flop in gaming history might have happened this year. We will get into that. Okay. Here we go. It looks way better than Wukong, says Noct Flugel. I've not played Wukong, but I know Andy Brew has played both Wukong and Stellar Blade twice. And this was Andy's take. After playing them each once, he preferred Wukong. After playing them each twice, he preferred Stellar Blade. Andy, please clarify in the chat if that is no longer true. Now, let's get into this. Again, 2024, it was a hot and cold year. We talked about a lot of the good. The games were the best part. But the industry is struggling. 30,000 people have been laid off. All around the world, primarily in the West, right? Capcom is hiring. Capcom's hiring. But so Shift Up. Shift Up is hiring out in Korea. Anyway, 30,000 layoffs. There aren't many industries that can survive that many layoffs. But it happened in gaming. Now look, there's reasons for that. When the coup happened 4 years ago, that a lot of studios overhired. Brought in too many people because they thought things were going to be way different moving on, but things did roll back. And in that rollback, a lot of the extra people who have been brought on have been let go. But that doesn't tell the whole story. And a lot of those cuts primarily came last year and the year before. This year's cuts came from studios being too big for their britches, biting off more than they can chew. Because these budgets are a problem, guys. These budgets are a real problem. And let me pull up some juice. Okay, first things first. Let's take a look at this graph. And let's switch back to this. Okay. Don't worry, guys. I'm going to fix this. For you. Don't you worry. Whoop. 1 second. This is the Game Awards. And Jeff deserves a lot of credit for this. This is not a knock. This is actually a good thing. The Game Awards are up here. The viewership of the Game Awards is more than the Super Bowl, more than the Oscars, Grammys, World Series, and music video awards. Right? In fact, it appears to me that more people watch the Game Awards than the Super Bowl, Oscars, Grammys, World Series, and music awards, video awards combined. So, in an industry that is so popular, right? In an industry that is so popular and is thriving. Look, the Game Awards didn't go down, right? They didn't lose viewership because the industry is struggling. No, the viewership went up. So what's going on? Why is the customer base getting bigger and more involved, yet the industry is struggling? Buyouts, flops, studios closing. You know what I'm saying? What's going on here? And again, credit to Jeff. Credit to Jeff, because he built this up a long ways. And he deserves a lot of credit for it. But why is it that more people are tuning in to the gaming industry now than they ever have before? Well, here we go. Ubisoft financial turmoil points towards imminent bankruptcy in 2025. For Ubisoft, one of the kings of this industry? That doesn't seem right. Something's up. Why? Why is this happening? Right? Now, Ubisoft, they have some games that sell, some games that don't. Right? They're very hit or miss lately. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. But the bloat, we brought it up earlier. Why is it, again, why is it that companies like Ubisoft can have 18,000 employees, yet ShiftUp can have 300, and the quality of the games are comparable? I'm not going to say one studio is better than the other, or one studio has higher quality than the other. That's for you to decide. I'm not here to tell you what to think, just to suggest what you should think about. Personally, I prefer ShiftUp. But how is it that a studio with 300 people and a studio with 18,000 people are putting out games of similar quality at the least, or comparable? What's going on? Could it be that Ubisoft's budgets are out of control? Because here's what I'm thinking, guys. Here's what I'm thinking. I was going to make a tinfoil hat for this episode. I was going to make a tinfoil hat, but I didn't have enough time. Here's what I think. A lot of these companies go public. And here's my thing. The second you go public, you lose control of your company. Another conversation for another day. Here's my tinfoil hat theory. I think a lot of IP acquisition firms, like Tencent, have bought stakes in companies like Ubisoft. They buy stakes in companies like Ubisoft. This is just a tinfoil hat theory. This is not news. I'm not saying this is true. I just think it's funny to think about. I'm half convinced that a lot of these IP acquisition firms like Tencent, they buy shares in a company like Ubisoft. They run the company into the ground, and then they buy the majority shares at a fraction of the price. I'm half convinced that's what's going on. Because I'm watching so many legacy studios that were so incredible and used to bang out hit after hit after hit after hit. And now they're flopping all over the place. What's going on? There's a lot of answers, guys. We can think of a lot of answers. There's BlackRock, and there's regulations and there's censorship. There's all these things. But I'm almost half convinced these IP acquisition firms, they buy a minority stake, they get influence in the company, they run it into the ground, and then they buy out the studio. And now they own the IPs fully. They become the majority. I don't know. Not a fact. Let's move on to more concrete things. So again, guys, going over this, the industry needs to budget itself a lot more healthy. Here's another little tinfoil hat theory I have for you guys. Here's another little tinfoil hat theory I've got for you guys. By the way, this is a crock of shit, and they should be shamed for even saying something like this. But here's what I think happened. It's no question that Hollywood is just not as big as it used to be. Cinema is not as big as it used to be. The video game industry is way bigger than cinema. I think what happened is all those people, producers who were bloating Hollywood's budgets with endless CGI, they've now come into gaming. And just as they all lobbied Hollywood to put CGI in every single movie to the point that set designers have been put out of work because everything is CGI, and then that ran movies into the ground. Not because the movies weren't good, even though a lot of movies are shit now, but not because they were good, but because the budgets got out of control. Because CGI is super, super expensive. And now I think a lot of those producers, executives, and that talent has come into the gaming world, and that's why everything you see is CGI, CGI, CGI. Half the trailers at the Game Awards were CGI, CGI, CGI. And that bloats budgets, and it's running a lot of places into the ground. All right. Oh man, this has gone on quite a while, longer than I thought, but you know what? We're going to get to, and here, let me keep track if I close out of the stuff I'm done talking about. This is something we discussed on Morning Quest. This is something we discussed on Morning Quest, and in some ways it's hard for me to talk about. In some ways. Because again, I don't like 30 years marketing experience, my ass. Yeah, exactly. These studios cut the legs out from under themselves routinely these days. They do. Okay. But it's a thing to discuss and take notes on 100%. You're not crazy, gang? Thank you, Suko. No, you're correct. This happens in industry all over the world. This is a known practice in money convos. You talk about the IP acquisition thing or the CGI thing? Tencent has a share. Okay, the IP acquisition. Tencent has a share in League of Leagues. Oh, I'm not saying everything Tencent touches gets run into the ground. Not at all. They own Genshin Impact, and that's thriving. I'm just saying with particular studios before they have their hand. Anyway, it was just a stupid tinfoil hat thing anyway. So let's move on. We're going to talk about this. This, to me, this should be story of the year in gaming. This should be... I brought it up on Morning Quest. I've tweeted about it. I've tried to do my piece and talking about this. This is another one where I have a lot to say, guys. Because you know me. Okay, let's first just touch on the word censorship. Those of you who follow my channel, who watch this show, who watch Morning Quest, who tune into the live streams, I've got 6 years under my belt. Y'all can vouch for me. I'm consistent on this. I don't care where the censorship comes from. If it comes from this team or it comes from that team. I don't care which direction the team is in. Whoever's doing the censorship, they can fuck right off. No matter what. I don't care what direction it comes in. I want it to fuck right off. Censorship absolutely does not have a place in art like this. Not at all. We have the ESRB, so that if there's nudity, you can put nudity and make it 18 plus. Okay, we have that. So we don't need to censor to protect people. We have rating systems for that. And again, those rating systems are a little bit problematic, but they're preferable to downright censorship. Okay? So, the idea that we need to censor people's art in order to protect the customer and their sensitivities is dumb. It is so dumb, and it's killing creativity, and it's killing innovation, and it's driving devs like Yoko Taro crazy, where he's sounding the alarm, but for some reason, in my opinion, not enough people are talking about this. This is a big deal. You could read it for yourself. Yoko says the refusal of credit card payment companies to accept legitimate adult content payments. This is Yoko Taro. Think near, 2B. This is a bit of a risky move on the part of payment providers who are involved in the entire distribution infrastructure. It is even possible to use it to control speech in other countries if you control the clearinghouse. Essentially what Yoko Taro's getting at here, and we'll actually point to the Dragon Quest devs to back us up here, what he's pointing to is that Japan, Square Enix in particular, has to deal with these payment processors like Visa who are controlling what's in the game, what's in the animes, what's in their art. So what they're saying is, like, for instance, you can't have that 2B9S sex scene in the anime because then we can't, as Visa, we can't endorse that product in the West. Right? That's what Visa's doing, is they're going to countries like Japan and wagging the Western finger in their face and saying, we won't sell your product in our country unless you do as we say. And guys like Yoko Taro are sounding the alarm and saying, this is where the industry is now, where Visa and MasterCard are wagging their finger in the Japanese dev's face and telling them what they can and can't do. I don't want that. Like I said, I want my market to be free. I want as direct of a line between Yoko Taro and me as possible. I want as direct of a line between the developers and the customer as possible. And Visa and MasterCard are probably the biggest hurdle when it comes to moving stuff from Japan to the West. Now, again, but none of these payment companies stop people from paying for the Brazzers members. Dude, they have double standards. These payment processing companies have double standards, and they are imposing them on foreign nations. It's horrible. That's why I want the markets to be free. Visa and MasterCard should not be allowed to do that. Again, we have rating systems. If you think the sex scene means you can't show it to audiences under 17 in America, that's fine. Then label it 18 plus in the West. Anyway. Look, I kind of went on my rant. Earlier. I'm going to go on another one. I'm not singling anybody out. Okay? I'm talking about outlets. I'm talking about journalists. I'm talking about creators, influencers. Not anyone in specific. I'm just saying all four camps can be guilty of this. Now look, you guys know how we do things here. I don't get political here. I don't ever discuss my politics. Okay? All of you out there have been following me for 6 years. You probably have close to no idea what I believe, and that's fine. Okay? I don't talk politics here. I want the Lodge primarily to be an apolitical sanctuary. Because when we're out in the world, okay, politics is everywhere. It's on our commercials, it's on TV, it's in the news, it's everywhere you look. One of the things I love about video games, even though video games have political subplots that are canonical and immersive within their own worlds, I come to video games to get away from contemporary politics, right? That's one of my escapes because it's everywhere. You can't get away from it. Not making a comment on that. I'm just saying video games are a great way to get away from that contemporary conversation. Now, can games have political themes? Absolutely. But when you're ham-fisting like 21st century talking points down my throat in the middle of a game that takes place like 1,000 years ago, you're de-immersifying me. So again, you guys know we don't talk politics here. I believe the Lodge and gaming should be a political sanctuary to the most. However, when it comes to censorship, I will speak up. Because to me, that's protecting the artist's ability to do their job. And that's the political world starting to impose on the artistic world. And I don't want that. So again, when it comes to censorship, I will say something. But I'll never tell you who the fuck to vote for. I'll never tell you what to believe, what God to believe in. But when it comes to censorship, again, whether it comes from that team or that team, I'm calling it out. Because I don't fucking like it. It has no fucking place here. And I really, really wish more people would speak up on it. Because there are people whose voices have power. You know, everyone's voice has power. But in the world of influencers and follower counts, it's disproportionate, like anything else, right? Mostly earned by Barrett. So good for those people that have earned large audiences. But here's the thing, guys. So, for instance, I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but another thing about the Lodge is I always swore I would never lie to you guys, and I would tell you exactly what I think and do my best not to beat around the bush. I've been guilty of beating around the bush before. I've noticed it, and I don't want to do that very much. So I'm going to come out and vomit it straight into your mouths like an ant would. Okay? It's how ants communicate, by the way. They throw up in each other's mouths. It's disgusting, but it's direct and to the point, and there's something admirable about that. Shout out to Jeff Winger. Now let's get into it. Let's go. Here's the thing. There are a lot of people, even though I generally keep myself apolitical, minus censorship, there are a lot of people in the gaming space who on their profiles, in their content, they will get political. That's their prerogative. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. That's the beautiful thing about the internet. Everyone can introduce their own flavor, right? Everybody can introduce their own flavor. It's great. And there are some people in the creative space, particularly even in the Square Enix space, who do tend to get political here and there. We'll have some political commentary. Hey, that's their right, baby. That's their right. Good for them. Not saying they shouldn't do that. But here's where I get frustrated. Here's where I get really, really frustrated. Is I know a lot of people, creator, influencer, journalist, outlet alike, who love Yoko Taro's work. They love Yoko Taro's work. They'll tell you how amazing Drakengard is, how great Nier is, how amazing Kaine is, and 9S and 2B, how amazing Yoko Taro is. What an innovator, what a genius. They will sing the praise, as they should, sing the praises of Yoko Taro, sing the praises of Nier and Drakengard. But they won't talk about this. Yet these are the same people. And again, I'm just trying to be honest, guys. I really am. I'm just trying to, it's almost therapeutic for me to say it like this on my own show, but just bear with me here. It's like, I've seen people who, and again, I've been doing this for 6 years. Okay? So I've watched both teams win. And I've seen people that when their team doesn't win in an American election, they will sound off about it for weeks. That's fine. It's their prerogative. You want to talk about elections on your gaming channel, go ahead. On your gaming Twitter, go ahead. It's your prerogative. And who knows? And honestly, some people offer some insightful shit. But here's the thing. These people who are so willing to use their gaming platforms to talk about something political like elections, for some reason, those same people who are so comfortable with getting political, they won't talk about this. Yet they love Square Enix, and they love Yoko, and they love Nier and Drakengard. And they'll sound off about some popularity contest, but not about this. Something actually affecting our games right now, in this moment. It baffles me. I don't get it. It's like the same thing with Stellar Blade earlier. They say, people saying they want all these things, they get handed these things, they turn their nose up. People are so willing to fight for what they believe in, but when it actually comes home and hits your games, nothing. I don't know. In a weird way, it kind of bothers me. Because again, people could do what they want with their channels. I don't judge. People could say whatever they want. But it seems to me, what this shows me, and this is why 2024 was so wild for me in gaming, because it fucking revealed a lot of people for who the fuck they are. It revealed a lot of people for who the fuck they are. Because here's the thing. It's not expedient for me to talk about this shit. It's not expedient for me to talk about censorship, okay? I didn't do my Morning Quest episode on censorship and got 1,000 new subs. No. So it's not expedient for me to talk about this shit. At least not now. Who knows? But it's like, it appears to me that a lot of people who are willing to get political will only do so if it's expedient. If it's expedient, they'll do it. But once it gets a little controversial, once it comes home, once it's actually affecting what your gaming platform is about, you're silent. I don't get it. It's not hard to say you don't like censorship. I don't get it. And I'm not saying anyone has an obligation to do something, by the way. Let me just be clear about that. Nobody has an obligation to do or say anything. I've just seen a handful of people who have no problem sounding off about popularity contests, who claim to love Yoko Taro's work, but aren't standing up for him when he waves the red flag. And that's disappointing to me, because I do think those people can make a difference. I wouldn't be frustrated if I didn't think those people could make a difference. If those outlets could make a difference. Can you imagine? This is why gaming journalism is fucking trash. This should be the biggest story in gaming. Maybe I'm being hyperbolic. I don't know. But Visa and MasterCard censoring one of the most legendary gaming devs ever? And it's our country imposing on Japan? I don't know. It's this kind of shit that revealed people, man. I got frustrated. Check this out. Let's switch it up. Now we can minimize it back down. Boop. And boop. Because it's not just that payment processor comment, guys. Look at this. Square Enix lawyers elbow in to shut down Yoko Taro fan archive. Look what's happening. This is what I'm saying, where it's like 2024 was a great year for games. But the gaming industry? Look at that. Look at that. Now again, it's Square Enix's lawyers, right? Not even the suits, not the devs, okay? They shut down a fan archive. A fan archive. People who love Yoko Taro's work and took it upon themselves to preserve what he's doing, to create an archive that has all the assets, all the documents, all the data, all the info, all the history, and it got shut down by the company he works for's lawyers. Dude, this is bad. This is bad. And I don't know what the conversation over in Japan is. Maybe this is the biggest story in gaming over in Japan. Maybe. But here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. That's probably going to get worse before it gets better. Because again, a lot of these titanic gaming companies, there's a lot of bloat, there's a lot of middlemen and women getting in the way. I'll tell you right now, if Stellar Blade fans made a fan archive, Shift Up won't shut that down. They won't. At least not until they end up with thousands and thousands of employees and middlemen and investors. I don't know, bros. This is the kind of stuff where I'm like, I've only heard two people talk about this, you and Majority Report. That's what baffles me, Suko. I'm a nobody, and I'm happy to be a nobody, right? I like my little corner of the internet. I'm not trying to do this full time, right? I have other creative ambitions that I want to become full time, but I'm a nobody. I'm just speaking my mind. But there are people out there who, they have real influence. Who owns the Stellar Blade IP? Shift Up Studios in South Korea. And they better, I would be very sad if Shift Up sold to a bigger studio. I would be very, very sad if that happened. I think it would be a huge mistake. Because how else do you prevent this stuff? It's what's happening, particularly to Yoko Taro and Nier. Because here's the thing, guys. It's not happening to Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts yet. Because Nier is an easier target. Because Nier's for adults, right? Games like Nier and Stellar Blade, they're made for adults. So they have adult themes. And they have sex appeal. So they're being targeted first. But make no mistake, when they'll move down the list. They will. Nobodies have hearts too, Landy. Remember. Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, again, I know I got heated. I know I'm getting passionate. But I am passionate about this because I love art. Art is art in all of its forms. In music, video games, cinema, paintings, museums. Art is one of the things that makes life worth living. Seriously. Art. There are many things that make life worth living, particularly other people. But art is one of the things that makes life worth living. It enriches you, and it makes your world more colorful, and it opens you to more perspectives, and it makes you think about things in a new way, and it makes you sit in awe, and then you look at something beautiful and you want to better yourself, right? You look at something beautiful and you're like, I want to be better. I want to measure up to that beauty. Art is one of the things that again makes life worth living, enriches our lives, enriches our society. And when these fuckers at fucking Visa and MasterCard and these lawyers are shutting it down, censoring it, watering it down, that is the enemy. That is the enemy. Okay? We can dunk on Kotaku all day, but Kotaku's a joke. They're not the enemy. Right? We'll talk about journalism soon. Right? They're not the enemy. Okay? Kotaku will talk shit, but fine. It's their right to go talk shit. I don't think Visa and MasterCard have a right to do this shit. Well, this shit. Sorry, wrong slide. But let's move on. And again, this was my other thing. It wasn't just, we went over this on Morning Quest, it wasn't just Nier that dealt with this. Dragon Quest has been dealing, here, because this is a great quote. $2 super chat from the artist joint says, you're a nobody. When did you lose your heart? When I learned about Visa and MasterCard censoring Japan. That's when I lost my heart. Because to me, it's like, if that doesn't stop soon, it's not going to. Let's, okay. So maybe I should pull up some context. Maybe I ought to pull up some context. Actually, I think I have the context here. I just don't know which one it is. 1 second. Where is it? I have context. Is it this one? Yes. Okay. Perfect. Here. Let's pull this down so I can get back on the screen now. So, okay, look at the screen, guys. This is how Dragon Quest, one of the ways Dragon Quest was censored. By the way, heard nothing but great things about Dragon Quest. I recommend people go and buy it. This censorship was not a product of the devs. It's a product of Visa and MasterCard, and I don't necessarily think it's right for Square Enix to pay the price for something payment processors are forcing them to do. But here's an example of the kind of things and censorship Visa and MasterCard are doing, right? Here on the left, you'll see the original Dragon Quest III. Bikini armor. Looks cool. In the middle, you'll see the HD 2D version of it. Now look, it's one thing if you put a sports bra on Tifa, right? Give it to Nomura and Roberto Ferrari. They made it look really good. But that doesn't look good. That doesn't look good at all. And let me tell you something. Toriyama wasn't even dead 6 months, and they censored his artwork. Okay? Akira Toriyama wasn't gone from this world 6 months, and they censored his work. I've been a fan of that man's work my entire life. You want to know when I lost my heart? You want to know what radicalized me? This. Akira Toriyama's work means the world to me. My wife and I had Goku and Chi-Chi cake toppers at our wedding. And when I saw them censor particularly his artwork, I was infuriated. Because part of me is like, how dare you? That man is one of the greatest artists who ever lived, and you think you can fix his work? Give me a fucking break. Give me a fucking break. Anyway, here's their commentary on it. Doing business with such a ridiculous country is really frustrating. Yep. In Dragon Quest, you used to be able to choose between a male and female main character, but now you can't choose between a man and a woman anymore. We have to label them as Type 1 and Type 2. I really wonder, who's even complaining about this? Nobody! Nobody! And that's why I'm like, it's not fair to take it out on Square Enix, which is why I was like, don't let this stop you from getting Dragon Quest 3, because they didn't want this either. But all right. I think I said my piece on that. Let's keep rolling, guys. I'm having fun. I'm not gonna lie. This might be one of my favorite podcasts of all time. I am having a good time. It's not often I get to be as like raw and direct about the industry as a whole. You know, so much of what we do is so game and character driven, and I want to maintain that. I want most of my podcast episodes to be like, hey, we're going to talk about this theory, or we're going to talk about this character and their journey. I do want to maintain that. But once in a while, I like doing episodes like this. Get this man some milk. Well, look, I'm going to be cooking dinner once this is over. All right. We still got a little bit to go. Let's see. Let me see here. All right. Last, but certainly not least, again, this is gaming in 2024. I'm not going to lie, guys. I said what to look forward to in 2025 or what lays ahead. We may not have too much time for that. I might touch on it for a few minutes at the end. But all right. Nah, that real shit gonna bleed through. All right. Let's talk about, again, we talked about a lot of the good. I want to remind everybody, this is not a doom and gloom podcast. This is not a black pill podcast. We had so many amazing games this year, but 2024 showed a lot of things that need to be fixed in the industry. Okay. Let's do this. And let's get this back to this. Okay. Let's pull this up. All right. It's Taco Thursday over here. Yeah, baby. Games Journal. Here's, this is not a comment on either of these Dans. We got two Dannies here. Not a comment on either of these two Dans. I'm not familiar with either of them. I don't know what their work is. So everything I say, even though they're up on the screen, everything I say does not pertain specifically to them. More talks about this as a whole, because we need to talk about this. Gaming journalism, for the most part, is pretty toxic. Okay? So let's read these tweets, and then I'll give you my comments. Games journalism is like fewer than 40 people now. Magazines are basically gone. That's not exclusive to gaming. And websites are close behind them. None of this is a surprise to me, but it's incredibly sad. We had something awesome for a while there. Younger generations have no idea what they missed out on. This guy says this is bad all around, but I'm particularly saddened to see how GameIndustry.biz has just been fully gutted from this deal. Truly one of my go-to resources. Okay. Here's what I'm going to say. Gaming journalists, you reap what you sow. I'll say it again. You reap what you sow. I can think of so many reasons why this is happening. Let's first talk about the things that are not the games journalists' fault. Because this isn't entirely their fault that this is happening. Because a lot of this is happening in many other industries too, right? Magazines are just gone altogether. But the reason why websites are going is because game reviews are better on video than they are in print. Bloodworth is from Easy Allies. He worked at Game Trailers for many years. Danny used to work at GameSpot. I like Easy Allies. I didn't know that. I literally only listen to them maybe like once or twice a year, but I'm familiar with them. Guess I didn't recognize the But thanks for that. Thanks for that heads up, Knoxville Gal. But gaming journalists, you reap what you sow. Again, not all of it is your fault. Print is gone. Websites are going because people would prefer to watch YouTube. Why? Because a YouTube reviewer, when they're talking about the combat, they can show you video of the combat. A YouTube video, when it's talking to you about the soundtrack, can show you a snippet of the soundtrack. Right? Video reviews just have so much more going for it than anything that was printed. That is why, as a whole, magazines are going out. And that is why, as a whole, websites that operated as glorified blogs are also going out as too. You know? Even if these games journalists were amazing at their jobs or were completely honest, which they're not always, this would have happened anyway. Now again, not a comment on the two men that we showed the tweet for, but the list goes on, as Will says. Let me show you else. Let me show you why else gaming journalism is failing. Let me show you why else. Let me show you why else gaming journalism is failing. I'll show you. Here we go. Here we go. You know what? This is probably better. Stellar Blade is sexist, but its developer doesn't see the problem. Came out. By the way, I'm not including the websites because I don't want anyone to shit talk the website. Yes, the journalist is here, but let me tell you something. Whoever's articles we're looking at, guys, this is not an invitation to go message them, tell them they suck or anything. Don't do that. Do not do that. I want to make that clear. Not here to pick fights with frickin' games journalists. Okay? I'm here to criticize them, but I just want to make it very clear. Whoever's articles we pull up, it's not an invitation to go criticize that person personally. Oh, hold on 1 second. My doorbell just rang. I will be right back, but we'll put on that sweet be right back for you guys. I'll be right back, and then we'll get right back into this. Okay, we are back. And yes, I brought the receipts. Because it's not often I'll sound off the way I've sounded off on today's episode. But when I do, I want to have the things to back it up. So let's get into this. Here's an article. Stellar Blade is sexist, but its developer doesn't see the problem. This article came out February 9th, before Stellar Blade came out. How did you reach that conclusion? Is it because Eve is pretty? Is it because Eve is a pretty girl and people that you have a problem with seem to like her? You want to know why gaming journalism's failing? Because this is what you have to say. Not talking about the gameplay, not celebrating the fact it's a small studio, not talking about any of the things that would interest a gamer who's thinking about what game to play. So if I go to a game, this is why gaming journalism failed. Because they're not there to inform you, right? If I go to a journalist website, I'm like, oh, what games are out? What are people saying about these games? And I see that, I'm like, what is that? That tells me nothing about the gameplay. You know what I'm saying? What is that? That's not journalism. That's you being a baby. Because she's a pretty girl. I'm sorry. If it's not a problem for 2B, and it's not a problem for Bayonetta, and it's not a problem when you can have sex with a bear in Baldur's Gate 3, then it's not a problem for Stellar Blade. I literally saw the same people who were cheering when you saw Tifa in a bikini were complaining about Stellar Blade and Eve's butt. This is what I mean where I'm like, 2024 broke some people. Revealed them to be... Anyway. Let's see why else people may not trust gaming journalists or why gaming journalism is failing. Oh, Stellar Blade. The developers have posted a decidedly sexist tweet about the protagonist. Okay, but maybe we'll do another. Developer of Stellar Blade fails to recognize the game's sexism. Funny how that came out on the same day as the other article. Wow, I didn't even notice that. Same day. Same title, different author. Is someone taking orders from on high? Is someone taking orders from on high? Game hasn't even come out. Same freaking article. Same day. And you see, I love this. A developer of Stellar Blade, they didn't even put the fucking space, a game featuring a heroine in seductive outfits, attempted to justify the sexy dimension of the game. It's entertainment aimed at an adult audience. Yes. This isn't hard. This isn't rocket science. Oh, but you know what? Maybe, I think we got one more. Game developer accused of sexist character design, even though it was based on a body scan of a real woman. I bring up Stellar Blade so much tonight because it's a prime example of so much of what we've discussed. It is the same journalists that attacked it relentlessly before it ever came out. They were the ones asking, we need more women protagonists. We need more minority representation. We need more small IPs. We need more new IPs. We need more smaller studios to see success. I don't disagree. I like all those ideas. That's why I bought Stellar Blade and I champion it. Yet the very things you were asking for, look how you reacted before it ever came out, before you ever gave it a chance. You know what's great about Eve? You know what's fun about Eve? She's the most powerful warrior in her world. And you feel it when you play as her. Right? Right? You feel it when you play as Eve. A game, a new IP, made a woman the most powerful warrior? And you're going to call it sexist? I don't know, man. That doesn't make sense to me. It was a very revealing year, guys. It was a very, very revealing year. And I give everyone the benefit of the doubt. 3 strikes and you're out. And a lot of swing and misses. 2024 was a great year for games. It was a bad year for the industry. It was a bad year for the industry. Great year for games. Great year for games. Rough year for the industry. But you know what? Things are changing. Things are changing. Stellar Blade, Astro Bot, Metaphor ReFantazio, that's the future. That's the future. The quality of FF7 is the future. Needs a healthier budget. But the quality of FF7 is the future. But the entire infrastructure surrounding Astro Bot, Stellar Blade, Metaphor ReFantazio, that's the future. Because all 3 of them are smaller studios. All 3 of them made better games than the big studios this year. And frankly, they all deserve to be championed for that. Whew. All right. I guess now, here. Let's see here. Do I have it? Do I have it? All right, guys. We could talk a little bit about 2025. Oh, God, I didn't even get into gaming's biggest flops. I had so much I wanted to discuss today. Oh, my God. This really could have been like a 3-hour episode. But what was I going to say? You know, do I have it pulled up? Now I got to look for it. I could have sworn I had something pulled up for this next topic I wanted to discuss. Oop, 1 second. 1 second. If that's there, that's there. And what's here? Maybe I have it? Oh. I'm going to say that for another time. Okay. All right, 2025. What to look forward to. I had a list, too. I mean, a nice little list of some games that are coming out. Or at least what we know is coming out. I'll rattle them off. Give me a second. And then we'll talk about some of the stuff that we look forward to on this channel. But some of the biggest games coming out in 2025. There's Grand Theft Auto 6, which is slated for that. I don't have many comments about that. I enjoy Grand Theft Auto games, but I don't wait in line for them. New Elden Ring. I'm yet to pop my Elden Ring cherry. Maybe that'll do the trick. Apparently The Witcher 4 is supposed to drop in 2025. I know a lot of people looking forward to that. Metroid Prime 4 coming in 2025. Civilization 7. Monster Hunter Wilds. And that game Split Fiction looked pretty good, too. So a lot of good stuff. But let's talk about some of the stuff this channel talks about. Then we'll wrap up for the day. Missing Link. Short of getting canceled. Guaranteed. Short of getting canceled. Guaranteed. For 2025. So let's talk about the Nomura-sized elephant in the room. Kingdom Hearts 4. So, obviously, not a 2025 game. If I'm wrong, someone come up with a thing. If I'm wrong, what I'll do. If I'm wrong, I'll cosplay a whole 12-hour stream as the Master of Masters. What up, Kobe? So Kingdom Hearts 4. I do think we'll see something. And we'll see something probably once Missing Link starts its marketing cycle. Because there's no better way to get people excited for Missing Link than to get them excited for Kingdom Hearts 4. So I think that once we get a little bit closer to release, we should see a little bit more about this game. I saw some Final Fantasy IX in the chat from Nick. Yeah, dude. It's like the one game from that NVIDIA leak that hasn't really dropped yet. But, I mean, I would scream. I love Final Fantasy IX. I hope it does happen. Oh, man. Okay. Well, Stellar Blade and the development team deserve their roses. They do. I mean, we are a few days and a year away from the 20th anniversary of KH2. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. You never know. But here's the thing, man, is like Kingdom Hearts is going to reveal stuff on its own time. I really don't think it shows up at any of these award shows. I just don't. KH4 and Missing Link got announced at a Kingdom Hearts event. So, I don't see it happening at an award show. I see it happening at a Kingdom Hearts event or a Square Enix like State of Play. That's what I think. So, that would be my word for that. Yeah. You know, we don't know much about 2025 in gaming. Again, I rattled off a few titles, but most of those don't even have a release date. 2025 is really just their release year. I think it's overall going to be a slower year for people who like RPGs and stuff and fighting games, right? I think it'll be a bit of a slower year. But good time to get to your backlog. All right. I have one last thing I wanted to show before we wrap up today. One last thing I wanted to show. Just in case I don't see you guys. Or you don't tune in to... Actually, yeah, no. The next episode won't be till after Christmas, so I'm glad I'm doing this. Again, Stellar Blade team put this out, which, by the way, I'll do a whole other episode on Stellar Blade one day, because the amount of love the devs have given their fans is incredible. Between all of the free DLC and just the random artwork they'll put out like this, it's so cool. But guys, if I don't hear from you between now and Christmas, have a Merry Christmas. Have a Merry Christmas Eve. Have a Happy Hanukkah. Although I believe the podcast next Thursday will be the first night of Hanukkah. So we may be live on the first night of Hanukkah. The sweet celebration. Okay. We're going to wrap up there. How are we doing on Twitch? Can we have enough people on Twitch to raid someone and make their night? Not at all. Not at all. Okay, we're going to wrap it up there, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, God, I didn't even have the Twitter chat open this whole time. I missed Twitter chats the whole time. But thanks for tuning in, everybody. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this episode, a little bit different than what we usually do. Next Thursday, we're going to do my Game of the Year episode. I might push it to Friday. But next week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, sometime that day, sometime that week, we're going to go live with Game of the Year, and we're really going to dive in on these games. Give them the love they deserve. Gush about them. So if you loved FF7 Rebirth, if you loved Metaphor, if you loved Stellar Blade, if you loved Astro Bot, if you loved Tekken, you're not going to want to miss next week's episode. We got a super chat before we close up shop from the artist joint. Says Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, guys. Honestly, have a very happy holiday. You know, kick back, relax, try not to think about the stuff that normally stresses you out, and just listen. It's a beautiful time of year. It's a beautiful time of year. Anyway, we're wrapping up there. Peace out, everybody. I love you all. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for chilling with me. Thanks for dealing with me. It's been a great year. We'll see you next week.